They were evacuated from their homes on Christmas Eve, and many of the people who live in the OPAL Tower still aren't allowed back. Now, on the eve of a state government report being released, residents are demanding answers.
The OPAL Tower, sold as a sparkling residential gem at Sydney's Olympic Park in this video on the developer's website.
So fellas, who wants to buy a cheap apartment? What do you reckon?
I'll just wait till the engineers report it.
But the structural defects that have beset this so-called jewel has put the entire construction industry under the microscope, with good reason. Tonight, shocking new claims that the troubles here at OPAL Tower are merely the tip of the iceberg in an Australian construction industry with crumbling standards.
Money breeds contempt. If they can cut a corner and get away with it, they will.
This whistleblower brings down the hammer on an industry under fire.
We really need to pick up our game, otherwise we're going to end up like places like China, where buildings come down all the time, bridge collapses, things like that.
An industry plagued by cowboy operators.
I can't believe that it's happening in Australia.
That we trust to put a reliable roof over our heads.
Nationally, about 1 in 5 will live in apartments in 10 years' time.
But at what cost? And who foots the bill when it all goes horribly wrong?
In a situation like this, we look at breach of contract and negligence actions against those people who may have been involved in the construction.
The orders to evacuate the OPAL Tower is still being felt by many residents.
It's a hard time, man. Yeah.
I'm not happy and a little bit angry.
This renter's relying on an official all clear before believing it's safe to move back in.
If government says it's okay, I believe it.
You might believe it, yeah. But how do you know who to trust these days, huh?
Yeah.
It's a fair question, according to Craig Walker, a construction industry veteran of 38 years. He believes the New South Wales government's promised crackdown on dodgy building certifiers in the wake of the OPAL Tower fiasco is a joke.
We've got ministers in portfolios that have no idea what they're doing. It needs to be done by a group of people that are in the construction industry, have the experience, have the knowledge, and the government just needs to buy out of it.
And this is why. Recent shoddy work by a $1 billion developer in Western Sydney. Cracked slabs, crumbling concrete, wonky walls and brick supports with no base.
I just wanted people to know that there are some very, very shonky builders out there. That's the quality of work that is slipping through the system, or lack of quality that's slipping through the system.
Whistleblower Craig Walker supplied these exclusive pictures to A Current Affair. For legal reasons, for now we've chosen not to name the company responsible for this questionable work, which was signed off by private certifiers. Craig Walker says residents have moved in and are at risk because of third-rate construction.
It gets covered up early in the piece. The problem's there before anyone gets to see it. It's covered up. If people rip the gyprock off their walls and things like that, they'd see major defects.
Why are you running away?
Stop that!
Hey.
I'm telling you.
A Current Affair exposed the issue of private certifiers late last year, asking this builder how this Melbourne townhouse complex was signed off by a private surveyor when it had no power or gas.
Look at the state you've left this place in. Look at the state. I mean, seriously. Stop and have a chat if you've got nothing to hide. Do you seriously expect people to live in that place with no power?
Can you just stop that?
No. Look, you're responsible for the development.
You'll be sued for this. You understand that?
You're threatening to sue me, huh? And you're the one leaving this mess back there.
Just leave it there.
Why are you running away?
The private surveyor told A Current Affair it gave the project a certificate of occupancy because the electrician had signed off on his own electrical work. But the Sparky was also ducking for cover, hiding inside his client's house.
You can't barricade yourself in someone's house.
Phil Dwyer from the Builders Collective of Australia slammed the number of corner-cutting developers cashing in on the building boom and the lack of protection for homeowners.
Just an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment to the building industry. We have a problem and there's no recourse for consumers.
OPAL Tower apartment owners know the feeling. They've been left with an asset they can't sell or rent at market value. Making matters worse, in New South Wales, new apartment buildings aren't covered by the Home Building Compensation Fund.
It's incumbent upon those professionals and builders and developers to ensure that the highest possible standards are met.
Jan Sadler is the National Special Counsel for Class Actions at Shine Lawyers. She says there's little alternative for affected owners other than a class action.
Damages in a case like this not only include the cost of remedying or any out-of-pocket expenses associated with remedying the problem, but there may also be a loss to the value of the property, which is not insignificant in this case.
Shine's Legal Eagle is encouraging OPAL Tower owners like this woman to join the action.
I think nobody want to come back, they worry about the future. You can't say this apartment is so safe now.
Class actions against developers could become more common given the surge in apartment living.
This is Castle Hill. Used to be a suburban heartland, detached homes everywhere, not anymore. It's apartment central, just as we're seeing right across Sydney, even in these outer suburbs.
Demographer Mark McCrindle says, "You'll be surprised at how many of us will be living in apartments within the next decade."
Sydney leads the race with apartment living. 28% of all residents living in apartment. Melbourne comes next at 15%, and then we've got Brisbane at 13%. You've got Adelaide at 8% and Perth at 7%. And nationally, 15% of all residents live in apartments. Sydney's really been driving that. If we look at the future for Sydney, within a decade we'll see a third of all residents living in apartments, and nationally about 1 in 5 will live in apartments in 10 years' time.
Which is why whistleblower Craig Walker feels it's his duty to hammer a nail in the coffin of cowboy developers putting people's lives and livelihoods at risk.
We've always had a good standard of building, and we need to get back up there and get back to number one, where we were.
And we'll make sure investigating authorities know all about that substandard